Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by Bet365. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me in just one moment are my co-hosts and colleagues, VJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. But before I bring in those two fine gentlemen, a reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. It believes that every sport should be epic, every tournament, every game, every point, every play, from the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today with the promo code ACTION, and you'll get $365 in bonus bets when you bet just $1. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, and 1-800-BETS-OFF, BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions apply. To the casual punter, a real fun weekend coming up in the Premier League. To the person in your life, maybe it's you, who gets into the weeds betting on the Premier League. A tricky one to handicap, I would say. Maybe the most complicated board of the season so far because of injuries, coming back from international break, point deductions, all sorts of chaos to sift through, but that's what we're here for. And that's what we're going to do. And we'll start with the headliner between Manchester City and Liverpool. This is at the Etihad. City minus 143, an odds-on favorite. Liverpool traveling at plus 333. And the draw is plus 320. BJ, I think that, if you had to choose a side here, you'd probably lean towards the underdog.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, though, I think it's a very, very interesting tactical matchup and one that I think is more exciting to live bet than play a side pre-match. So just setting all the injury stuff aside, because there are a lot of guys that are questionable to play here for City. If all of them play, I'm very interested to see what Pep's approach is, because his approach against Chelsea was incredibly aggressive. He was essentially pressing with a front five, and Chelsea was consistently playing through that first line of pressure and creating those transitional moments. Now, if he wants to try to do that against Liverpool, there's not a better transition team in the world right now than Liverpool. So they are going to get ripped apart if they try to do that. Now, we could also see the approach that Pep has gone with against teams like Arsenal, where he has played very passive, tried to cut off central progression, and force teams out wide. Now, from the aspect of what does Liverpool potentially do out of possession, I think it's very interesting. Chelsea, from the get-go, was like, City, you're not playing through the center of the pitch. They closed it off, but City kept trying to play through there. City, what they're running into right now, because John Stones hasn't been healthy, is because when they try to build up, they like to push that center back into the middle of the pitch. Well, Kanji was playing that role against Chelsea, and he just wasn't as good at that role as John Stones was. So City obviously got forward in transition a couple times, created a couple big chances, and they could do that here against Liverpool, because if Liverpool decides, which they usually do, to invert Trent Alexander-Arnold to the middle of the pitch when they build up, that's going to leave a lot of space out wide for somebody like Doku to cause a ton of problems. Now, I'm going to be potentially looking at playing a live over here, depending on what City tries to do. If they play more aggressively, I think that will create a lot more chaos. It also kind of depends, obviously, who's going to be playing for City. Haaland is obviously questionable. Ake is questionable. Ederson is questionable. So if all of those guys don't play, then it makes it harder, especially if Haaland's out, to play an over. But if they do play, and especially if Doku plays on the left, Konate is questionable for Liverpool, which is going to leave a lot of open space for Doku to go one-on-one against somebody like Joel Matip, which is going to be a very difficult matchup for Liverpool. So I'll be potentially looking at it live over here if we get a lot of chaos at the beginning, and then maybe we get a couple big chances and teams are playing aggressively, try to hop in on a live over. But outside of that, for me, I think the line is right pre-match. So I'll be passing on it. It just really depends. I don't really know what Pep's going to do. Is he going to play aggressively, or is he going to go back to game control? And I think we need to watch that and figure it out before we can make a bet on it.
I think it's much more likely that he tries to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean it's going to work, right? We've seen Guardiola, and they seem to have one or two of those early season games every year. The Newcastle game last year, and this year, it being the Chelsea game with 6 expected goals in that match and 8 actual goals. But I think Liverpool is going to be much healthier / available now, right? They had to play a makeshift midfield against Brentford. They were not great in that match. I know they won it 3-0, but if you look at final XG, it was 1.7 to 1.6. Brentford took 16 shots in that game. I know there were a couple like close offside calls that hurt Liverpool as well, but I thought the Bees were very dangerous. And I thought it came down to just Liverpool not having the ball stopping in the midfield. And we talked about this, like McAllister will be back from suspension. It looks like Gravenberch is going to play. And so Szoboszlai, Jones may also be back. Konate is questionable. So there are a couple question marks, but I do think Liverpool will have their first choice 3 that they've been rolling with lately, which is Sobo and McAllister and Gravenberch available. So certainly Liverpool, close to full strength here. Been playing Nunez up top, which has been, I think, his best position. I think their best 3 attackers in the space are Nunez, Salah, and Diaz. So, whether it's him or Jota, I think, Liverpool's kind of finding its best lineup. And if you just look at non-penalty expected goal difference this year, in 11 on 11 minutes only, they have been about even teams this year. There's not been a huge gap between the two of them. Liverpool is plus 1.37, City plus 1.45. And you could squint a little bit and kind of pick nits at City's numbers against the fellow top teams. They haven't really had like a dominant performance against a fellow Big Six opponent outside of the derby against United, which we don't think much of them. So you could pick nits. I have City 136 here. That's assuming Haaland's in, of course. So I don't really have a strong opinion on the side here, but I would lean just toward Liverpool based on the fact that Liverpool, for me, their ceiling is still right there with City.
The one thing I'll also say about Liverpool is we haven't really seen them at full strength against an elite team, because if you remember, they obviously were down a man against Newcastle, down 2 men against Tottenham. The last match where they've played essentially in what you would call a top 6 side would have been Brighton, which ended up being a very even 2-2 draw. Since then, they were up a man against Everton and dominated them. They beat Nottingham Forest. They drew with Luton Town, but created almost 3 expected goals. And then obviously beat Brentford over the weekend before the international break. So it'll be very interesting to see what Liverpool looks like against one of these elite teams. And then it'll be a good litmus test. Now, coming up, they have a pretty easy schedule. Fulham, Sheffield United, Palace. But then they got United and Arsenal, and then the reverse fixture against Newcastle around the festive fixture time. So this will be a very, very good litmus test comparatively to those matches to see how good Liverpool actually is.
Yeah, 1 point separating these two teams in the table. Coming back from the international break, and as BJ alluded to, we are about to head into the busiest time of year for soccer teams, players, fans, bettors, etc. So get your betting boots on. All right, let's talk about Newcastle and Chelsea.
I imagine I will be betting Liverpool to win the league if they lose this game.
Stop it.
Okay. I think we're going to get like 10-1. I think I'm going to be in. But we'll see. We'll see how Saturday goes.
There you have it.
Well, it's a lot of fun to bet your favorite team, right? To win the
league.
Yeah,
right. Like this every year we hear this song and dance from Anthony about his boys. Newcastle and Chelsea now. We'll save that conversation for after the game that Anthony is hypothetically talking about. Newcastle plus 150 at home. Chelsea plus 162. The draw plus 260. Every team, save for like 3 in the Premier League, are just the walking wounded right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe Newcastle has it the worst. And Chelsea's not that far behind. But Chelsea's been dealing with a lot of the injuries that they're still dealing with all season. So, all things being equal, I would love to bet Newcastle on the spot. At home, Chelsea kind of riding high after that performance a fortnight ago. It's a decent sell high opportunity with the way that the Blues have been going. But it's really hard to bet Newcastle here because who's going to play for this team, Anthony? Like who's going to play for them?
Are we overrating the injuries now?
I think we are.
Because-
It's when they're if it's like one or two guys, I actually think you both will talk about like one or two guys too much, and we can get into overrating. But when it's a cluster, it becomes a whole different thing. Like I think one-off injuries are very different from 11 people who are dealing with something.
Right, but they are getting some positive news here, right? So like Isak might be back, and absolutely that's true. Like the market, I think doesn't even go as far. Like Newcastle was minus 135, 40, and then last week at Bournemouth, and the market just kept going and going and going because the injury news just kept getting worse. Wilson was out, Isak wasn't going to be back. They ended up starting just like a really bad soccer team.
Yeah,
right,
and got outplayed. But now Bruno is back from suspension. We know that. Almiron trending toward playing, Isak trending toward playing. Like that's kind of enough for me to buy in again because that's like the best midfielder on the team.
That's enough for you if they play or just the fact that they
play. Like I'm not betting it now,
right? Because right now you'd have
we're recording this Tuesday afternoon. The market has clearly downgraded them.
Yep.
Right.
Off of these injuries, and there's a chance that the market has gone too far. And that I want to actually bet on Newcastle. I mean, that being said, I don't really want to bet against Chelsea right now because I think they're quickly improving. They're figuring it out, kind of more so. They're quickly improving, which is just that the shots are going in the net now instead of missing the net. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said that Chelsea has once again turned in one of their best performances of the season against a fellow Big Six team who wants to go at them. But that's not really Newcastle in a sense. Like Newcastle's not going to want the possession of the ball. They will press. So, they're going to, two of the best pressing teams, I think, in the league right now, two of the three best with Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea. So, that'll be interesting. But I mean, think about how crazy this line is, given what we just saw like 2 weeks ago. We all said it's ridiculous that Newcastle is a home dog to Arsenal. Now Newcastle's like a home pick'em to Chelsea. I mean, I've downgraded Arsenal, I've upgraded Chelsea, but I'm not that close on those two teams. So I think there's something to be said for, waiting and seeing and maybe grabbing some Newcastle.
Yep.
I don't think the press, like Chelsea's pretty press resistant, so that's worth something to them. They've been pretty good in build up, but Newcastle's injuries, like if Isak can't go, they just don't have a striker
right
at the club who can play that position. And if Almiron can't go, they don't really have wingers outside of Anthony Gordon either. So now they're like, is Livramento going to play wing?
He has to play left back because Lewis Hall can't face Chelsea.
Right. So there's all kinds of questions, but I do think that if you start to see good news on Isak and Almiron, that I would be closer to betting Newcastle at home here than betting Chelsea, but probably going to end up passing this one overall.
Yeah, I mean, so another one is Schär, who is also questionable because if he doesn't play, then Newcastle has no depth at center back because Dan Burn is also out because Dan Burn can very easily slot into that center back role where he's usually playing as left back, but he's also out. So for me, it's Ishak and Schär are the most important two. If both of those guys play, and even if Almiron plays as well, it's not that far off from Newcastle's usual starting 11 that they would normally play against one of the a normal Premier League side. So yeah, I agree with Anthony. It's wait and see. Newcastle's been a little more passive out of possession. They're not just relentlessly pressing with their normal 4-3-3. They've switched to a 4-5-1 to try to limit that central progression and press more out of a mid block. It's been pretty successful. So I don't think you'll see Chelsea be able to play through the press like they were able to when City was very aggressive against them. Plus, this is Newcastle at home. They have one of the best home field advantages in the Premier League, and they've been one of the best home teams in England for a long time now. So, yeah, it'd be Newcastle pick 'em for me if both Ishak and Schär play. That will be massive for them, and I think it's good enough to bet Newcastle at a pick 'em.
Yeah, interesting conundrum. The classic. No, that if the injury news is good, particularly on Eshak. Like this number will move towards Newcastle.
They'll be plus 125.
Yeah, and you'll want to beat the market, but at the same time, we could be looking at a situation like Anthony said, where they just don't have anyone to finish chances, and they turn into Chelsea of October. On to Burnley and West Ham now. So those first two matches we talked about obviously are big for the big picture Premier League. This one I think is sneaky important for both teams. I know that West Ham is pretty comfortable where they're sitting in the table on 17 points and clear of relegation issues, but with the way that they've been going this season, you do have to wonder like how many more like downturns in form they can handle without David Moyes really starting to feel the pressure. He started to feel it a bit in the early going. They get the win over Nottingham Forest going into the international break to stop a 3-match losing streak. Meanwhile, Burnley, they're propping the table up at the moment. So they just need this win for safety purposes. And I actually don't think that in a claret and blue derby here that the Clarets, Burnley, are all that off-putting as a bet here. I think plus 275 at home, coming off an international break, playing a still overrated West Ham team. Not terrible. The tactical stuff still is a concern with Burnley, and I think playing a David Moyes side in their style is a little concerning. But I think this is a pretty good buy low spot on Burnley, BJ.
I think it is too. I hate this match so much because I've been very anti-Burnley for a long time now. But the prices on West Ham are getting crazy. They should never have been, like we mentioned, they never should have been minus 125 at home against Nottingham Forest. And, the goals that they scored were, a little bit, the first goal they scored was Dominguez just kicked the ball off his own defender and Paqueta just went in and scored, and then they scored off a set piece. But this is the type of match, though, I think Burnley can actually be successful. Where Burnley has struggled is against teams that will press them high. They're not good enough in build-up play. They can constantly turn it over, and that's when you see them conceding 2-3 expected goals. They've actually been, the matches where they've actually gotten points, they've been against teams like Luton Town and Nottingham Forest, which plays very similar style to that of West Ham. And for West Ham, it's also concerning who's actually going to start up top for them, because Antonio's been out. So they started Jaron Bowen up top, which was pretty successful, but now he is questionable to play. So is it going to be Kudus? Is it going to be Paqueta? Who's actually going to start up top here for West Ham? And I thought Burnley against Arsenal for large stretches, they went, Vincent Kompany kind of switched them into a good defensive block team. They were cutting off central progression. They weren't trying to press Arsenal. And they were doing a very good job of it for pretty large stretches. Arsenal got into 2v1s in wide areas, but Burnley was okay with that as long as they weren't able to play through the center of the pitch. And Arsenal obviously scored off a set piece, and that's where Burnley's kind of struggled as well, which is a concern here against West Ham. But yeah, West Ham is a road favorite at minus 105. I know it's Burnley, and I know they've been terrible, but man, that's too high for West Ham. So I am projecting a little bit of value on Burnley, but the market keeps moving towards West Ham. So I'm going to wait and see if we can get maybe a better price here on Burnley, which I think we might be able to closer to match time. So it'd be Burnley plus a half for me, but I'd keep waiting and see if you can maybe get them at a plus number for plus a half.
Yeah, is Antonio addition by subtraction?
It's his out of possession stuff that I think really makes them a little bit better as opposed to a guy like Kudus.
Right, but here's the thing. What they did instead of playing Antonio was just add another midfielder. And it's like the least functional midfield in the Prem right now.
Yeah.
Souček gets you some set piece stuff and wins some headers, but he's not on the ball ever. He doesn't pass, and he's not even really a great ball winner anymore. He's taking a step back there. Alvarez is never on the ball, never passes. Ward-Prowse is had the most touches in the game against Nottingham Forest, but he didn't do anything with them except the set piece stuff, which again, West Ham is a really difficult team right now because yes, they're elite on set pieces. They scored twice on set pieces against Nottingham Forest, and it's really painful when you're sweating a dog against this West Ham team and they just keep trying to get corners. They're not even trying to score; they're just trying to get corners. And it was evident in the game against Forest that eventually they got one and they scored, and then they won 3-2 in a game that both teams had 19 penalty touches in the box. There was really no difference between the two teams in terms of shots or volume. Bowen being out though, like he is their best like shot getter. So if he's out, then they're really stuck. Because Paqueta, he plays more out wide. He's their best creator, but if he gets stuck out wide and they have this really non-functional midfield, the attack can get kind of ugly for West Ham. And that's why I'm really down on them. And I am also tempted by Burnley in this spot as well. The market had downgraded them a good bit by my numbers, but they're taking money here. So now I'm tempted to hop in as well.
Another barn burner here. Luton Town hosting Crystal Palace. The Hatters plus 260, Palace plus 110, and the draw plus 230. Not too much we need to get into here, Anthony. I don't think it's a pass for me. It looks like a pass across the board.
I mean, tempted by the under. Just like anytime you see Palace road favorite, Luton have been an active out of possession team. They haven't been completely run over. Even with Eze and Olise, betting back into the team, like they're still not creating a ton. Like the Everton match was kind of wonky in how it progressed because there were 2 goals in the first 5 minutes, but large stretches of that match there wasn't a ton going on. They finished with 1.5 non-pen xG. It was fine, but I just think that anytime you get Palace as a road favorite, you're going to automatically just tilt toward like probably nothing happens in this match, but number being as low as it is, I can't really get there on it. So yeah, this is a pass for me.
Forest now, and that was a tough one.
Yeah,
our last episode against West Ham. So
that was tough.
But now they're an underdog, and now they're at home. They're 2-1, hosting Brighton and Hove Albion, and who are coming in at plus 120. The draw here is plus 275. I know we like Forest at home, and we prefer them obviously when they're an underdog, and it's been ages since Brighton have won a game. But you know what? One of the early rallying cries of this podcast, BJ, which you'll remember, is it's buy low Brighton.
That's right.
And I think that's the time. This is the time to do it.
Yep.
They, like I said, when's the last time they've won a match? It's been
not counting the Europa League. It's been over a month.
Yeah, I think it's Europe. So their last win was in the Europa League on October 26th. They beat Ajax, right? So
they beat Ajax twice,
right?
Yeah.
Bournemouth was their last win in the Premier League.
Bournemouth, September 24th.
Also known as the last time I bet against them.
Boy,
no, I think I did bet against them one other time.
Yeah.
So it's been ugly, but the defensive numbers have really improved. They've really improved here.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, it was never realistic to expect them to continue in the Premier League, putting up the ridiculous XG that they were and the ridiculous expected goals allowed. Like there was always going to be some natural regression, but I think De Zerbi has really dialed it back. Now you could argue that when you're playing Fulham and Sheffield, that's not necessarily the plus EV way to play. They ruined our boy, but I think that in this spot, like off the break, the fact that Brighton's only plus 125 here is a little cheap for me. I'm a little worried. Ferguson picked up a thigh injury. Is he in? Is he going to play in this? I'm not so sure.
But they're so deep. If you think about like the depth that they have and the way they're going to play, they can play Pedro, they can play Ansu Fati.
But Welbeck's out too. Like it is a little tricky with Welbeck and Ferguson out because they don't have a natural like striker. I like Pedro. I like obviously Fati. They get decent shot numbers for midfielders. I don't think either of them are strikers. So, I have to go to Forest, a team who's going to play very similarly to what, Sheffield just did, but better. I don't know. It's a little tempting.
Yeah. So I think why you're seeing the defensive numbers increase and why Brighton struggle is because the playbook is out on them. Just don't take the bait. They want to bait you into pressing. If you don't take the bait, then they have kind of struggled. And what De Zerbi wants to do is he wants to play through the middle of the pitch, because recently he's been bringing Matoma and Adringa inside and essentially been playing a 4-2-2-2 in build-up and just trying to find that space in between the lines, essentially playing, like Anthony said, two midfielders so that they can come back and exploit that space and try to find ways through. And they were able to do that with the first goal against Sheffield United. But from that point on, they did struggle with central progression. And that is something that they could struggle with here. But, the defensive numbers have increased because they're keeping so many people in the middle of the pitch, and they're able to stop those transition attacks through the middle. Because if you remember in the past, Brighton was building up in a 4-2-4, so they were trying to exploit one-on-ones with Matoma and guys out wide and do the overlaps, obviously, with Estupiñán, but nobody was in the middle of the pitch, and they got exploited through the middle. Well, now teams aren't able to do that. And I think one reason for that, now Lewis Dunk is going to miss this match, so that's obviously massive. He's their best defender. But John Paul Van Hecke has been incredible in the last few starts for them. When he's played, they're only allowing around 1 expected goal per 90, and it's no coincidence that he's come into the team recently. And I think they finally found that replacement for Levi Colwell that they were missing drastically in the beginning of the season. And from a price perspective, so this is very interesting. Here's a question for you guys. How closely rated do you think Aston Villa or Brighton are? Or do you think one team is clearly better than the other?
Brighton's marginally
Brighton's,
better.
yeah,
I've downgraded
Brighton.
them, but they're marginally better.
Yeah, so Aston Villa was minus 110 at Nottingham Forest a couple weeks ago. Now we're getting Brighton at plus 120.
I also bet Forest in that game.
Yeah.
I think we all did.
That's the point here, is that, yes, Brighton has struggled in these type of scenarios, but they definitely have the attacking prowess and the ability to play through, and the defensive numbers have been better. And Forest's offense, it's just one transition attack, and that's it, basically, because against all the good teams this season, I think Arsenal is the only team where they've actually created over 1 expected goal. So I don't think that Forest is going to get much here in transition. So it just comes down to, can Brighton break down the slow block a couple of times and maybe get a goal in? So the sharp play would probably also be under 2.5 as well at plus money, just because of recent results. But I really think that the price here on Brighton is far too cheap at plus 120.
Sheffield United. How about this one, Anthony? I think you're the only one with anything on this beautiful matchup. A relegation 6-pointer, Sheffield United plus 225, Bournemouth plus 115, and the draw plus 250. I don't know how, but you've worked up the gumption to go back to the Cherries here. Who I mean they've been better here, but he loves his cherries. This guy,
I know he does. Yeah,
he really does.
Well, here's the thing. I thought we'd get a better number, to be completely honest, because I expected, this being a relegation match with Sheffield at home, that the market would just kind of price them right around a pick 'em, with Bournemouth clearly being the better team. So the fact that I only get plus 125 is a little bit less than I would like. Of course, I'd always want a better number, but my projections make Bournemouth plus 115 here. So I am not that far off the market. I just think Sheffield United is not going to offer any resistance or pressure or create high turnovers in a way that causes problems for Bournemouth. And thus, it kind of eliminates the biggest issue that Bournemouth's had all season. There are some positive injury news situations going on for the Cherries here. It's still not great, but it's not as bad. They still don't have Philip Billing. He has been a key part of their very mediocre midfield this season. So, that's not great. But overall, they do get most of their first choice defense back here. So I'm close on Bournemouth. Probably will end up not actually betting it because there are better games to bet, as they say. But I think the Cherries here, just based on preseason priors, I would have laughed at you at the beginning of the season if I could get Bournemouth plus money against the Sheffield team. And I still have faith, even if my faith is somewhat waning in this situation right now. I'm surprised that they haven't fired him yet. But
you got to win though.
He did get a win.
Hey, they're
2 wins in 3 for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They are trending in the right
And
direction.
they were beating Wolves until the red card. So, they really could have been 3 wins and 4.
And look, I mean, they're now 4 points clear of the relegation spot, a whole game plus multiple games because of a particular points deduction. You mentioned it. There are other games to bet, and I think that there are 2 that we've yet to talk about that are very, very, very fun to bet, including Brentford as a home underdog plus 375 hosting Arsenal, coming in at an odds-on favorite minus 138. The draw here is plus 275. Boy, BJ, this one's got to be tough for you.
Yeah, I hope both of you lose all your money. Because I know where you're going. I'm passing. The price on Arsenal is a little inflated. I agree. But what I will say about Brentford is their past few matches defensively have been a little concerning. And if you want to look where Arsenal creates a lot of their chances, it's out wide in these 1v1s with Saka and Martinelli. And as of right now, Brentford doesn't have Aaron Hickey, and they don't have Rico Henry available. So that's a little concerning when they're trying to defend in those 1v1s in wide areas. But Brentford in their last 3 matches have conceded around 2 expected goals to Chelsea, West Ham, and Liverpool. So now, if this is going to be just, if you love ball circulation, that's what you're going to see all match long. Brentford's going to stay passive. Arsenal's just going to circulate the ball and just hopefully they can get those 1v1s in good areas. But if you're a neutral, sure, there's value on Brentford. But I'm not a neutral, so I'm not betting it.
I like the under more.
What'd you say?
I like the under more than Brentford. Obviously,
No, I think that this is a really good spot to back Brentford at home, hosting a Big 6 club. These are spots that we
do it every time.
Yeah, we dream about every.
We don't always win. I mean, Brentford plus 1.5 probably should have won against Liverpool, but didn't. We don't always win. But we win more than we lose.
We win more than we lose. And if you look at Brentford since that first international break in September, it's been a tricky schedule for them. Like Newcastle, an Everton side that was finally healthy and improving, and we're just due for a big performance. Don't even want to talk about the EFL Cup, but they played Arsenal, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and then Forest, West Ham, and Burnley. So I feel like they've played like a really diverse group of opponents, and they've done, I think, what you'd expect out of Brentford, which is they're getting results. They'll lose the odd game here or there, but generally everything looks respectable to me. Like you said, the game against Liverpool was closer than I think the final score dictates. A really nice win against Chelsea. Unlucky performance against United, and I know that we all think of United, and similarly away at Newcastle, like they kept it low event and tight and tidy, and
yep.
That I feel like that's what we're kind of looking at in a game script here against Arsenal, which is, can they turn this match into as close to a coin flip as possible? I trust this team to do that every time against these kind of clubs.
Yeah, national champion soccer head coach at Syracuse, Ian McIntyre, always used to love to tell me goals change games. And that's like one of the best soccer coach speak terms of all time. And they do. And in this game, I don't think a goal changes a whole lot, because Arsenal playing from behind is going to be the same as Arsenal in an even game here. Arsenal playing from ahead, Brentford, when they played Liverpool, Liverpool almost wants you to get into that kind of track meet with them. Like, let's go back and forth. Let's go up and down. Our players are better than yours. We'll beat you. And that's basically what happened in the end of the last match. Liverpool goes up 1-0, and then Brentford had a couple chances, but Liverpool finishes theirs. They win 3-0 going away. Arsenal is the opposite of that. I mean, they are shutting down every game at every turn, and you can just look at like this historic defensive run that they're on right now. Mm-hmm. They basically pitched a shutout against Sevilla. They gave up their one shot in stoppage time. They basically pitched a shutout against Sheffield. They gave up 0.3 xG to Burnley. Sorry, BJ, you probably had the right bet there. And they were dominant against Newcastle. I mean, they conceded 1 xG to Newcastle, but almost all of it came on that controversial play, which was kind of just like a broken down attack that led to like a tap in. So this defense has been historic.
Best in the world.
And I think it comes down to Arsenal not optimizing their attack and prioritizing control to an extreme extent and not getting the most out of like this midfield, which is pretty average going forward and pretty good defensively, like especially with Declan Rice breaking up the play and like being as good as he is in the midfield. So Brentford doesn't want the ball. Arsenal wants it. Arsenal keeps it in their final third a lot. They don't do anything with it. Under 2.5, -104. I think this game could easily end 1-0 Arsenal, could easily end 1-1. I just don't really see a ton of attacking quality in this Arsenal side right now beyond Saka. So I still think there's questions. It's been like my prevailing theme of the podcast all year. And I think this is the perfect team to kind of quash and slow down this attack. So yeah, the Gunners may win. I think the number's a little inflated, not as much as usual, but I do like the under more. So under 2.5, -104 is out there. There was some plus money. It has taken some under money in the last couple days.
From BJ's team to Anthony's second team, Spurs +130 hosting Aston Villa, +180, and the draw is +280 here at Tottenham
The wheels
Hotspur
are coming off.
Stadium. For who? For who? That's the real question, Anthony.
For my Spurs.
Yeah,
we lost.
We tried to tell you. We tried to tell you that,
yeah.
that this team was a little bit smoke and mirrors, but still really good. I think we'll see how far they fall. Meanwhile, Villa 3-1-1 in their last 5. But in those last 5 matches, it's, I mean, you want to talk about a cake schedule. It was Wolves, West Ham, who were really struggling at the time, Luton Town, the loss to Forest, and then a win at Fulham, or a win against Fulham. So I don't know, and maybe it's just I should just submit that I can't get this Villa team right. And I feel like it's been since Unai Emery took them over, which is ironic because that Villarreal team maybe more money than anybody in Champions League ever. But I want to bet Spurs here. Is my point, Anthony? I think that this is just not a terrible time to take them on.
I mean, we're not good. We weren't that good to begin with, and now we don't have our good players. They get Udogie back, but they lose Basuma. Not going to have Romero. Not going to have Mickey. So like, it's a very precarious back line. Who's going to play Ange Ball, but do it against Moussa Diaby and Leon Bailey? Like, that is a concerning indicator. With that being said, I think, this year has been the story of, home road. Villa's been so different. And it's not just results or performances, it's literal play style. How much of the ball do they have? How much are they pressing? What's their shot allowed numbers? Like, they're so different when they've been at home and they've been able to kind of beat up on these bad teams versus when they've gone on the road against any quality opposition and gotten their shit kicked in. Like, they have not been good, even at Forest, So I don't really want to bet them either. And thus, I will pass. But the injury situation at Spurs is really dire, and no pun intended. And they really I'm going to start using that intentionally now. But they really don't have any solutions. Like, Maddison being out, Bentancur comes in, but he's fresh off a major knee injury, and he's not as good at creation as Maddison. There's not enough shots now. Son is the only guy. Richarlison being out. Kulusevski's not like a shot monster guy, so it's just kind of a broken team. They scored a great goal early on against Wolves and then did nothing for the entirety of the rest of the match and got very lucky. I mean, Wolves won the match in the last 5 minutes, but they really could have lost it and won it before that. with how many chances they created. So I lean toward the under as well, but I don't really want to trust this defense either. So I'm passing, no bet. But if I had to bet, I'd rather BJ.
Yeah, I'm taking Aston Villa. Draw, no bet, plus 115. The injury situation is for lack of a better word, dire. But the real problem of not just that Ben Davies and Eric Dyer are worse defenders than Romero and Van de Ven, it's the fact that when Tottenham, because they're probably going to have a majority of the ball in this match, Aston Villa is probably going to concede a lot of possession to them. It's when Tottenham loses the ball, when they're building up in a 2-3-5, that leaves a lot of space out wide for 1v1 situations. And Van de Ven and Romero are really, really good at covering space and being good defenders in those type of situations. Watkins and Diaby against Davies and Dyer is a very, very bad situation for Tottenham that I don't think they have a solution for. And listen, Postecoglou is not just going to switch his idealisms and just sit back in a low block and hand the ball to Villa and say, all right, try to break us down. He's going to play a high line. He's going to press. They did that against Wolves, even when they were ahead. So
did that against Chelsea with 9 men.
Right. The question here for Tottenham, because when has Villa struggled the most this season? When they played Liverpool and they played Newcastle, and they got absolutely beat up in build-up play and turned the ball over constantly high. So if you truly believe that Tottenham's press is elite, because they're number one in passes per defensive action right now, if you truly believe that they are elite and that they can disrupt Villa's build-up play, then you can make a case for them. But I don't think, given the players that they have available, especially not Basuma, that they have the personnel to be able to press Aston Villa effectively out of possession. So I do like Villa plus 115 here on the road. Again, the two worst defensive performances that they've had this season were against Newcastle and Liverpool. If you take away those two matches, they're only conceding about 1 expected goal per 90 minutes and have only conceded 5 big scoring chances in their other 10 matches. So I think this is a good spot to keep fading Tottenham. It was good. What was good is the fact is that Wolves had to play very aggressively because they went down so early. And if Aston Villa, who is a very tactically flexible team that can press, that can sit back deep, can do a lot of different things well, it's a really good matchup here for Aston Villa, even if they are on the road. So I do like them draw no bet at plus 115.
Game of the week time.
Oh yeah,
perhaps game of the year.
Everton spot of the year, motivational spot of the year.
Yeah, can you imagine? It the type of thing that you hear it all the time on in college football. If you listen to BBOC, or I guess in it's a thing I'm sure in other sports, maybe outside of Major League Baseball, where I don't think motivation matters really at all. Everton gets deducted 10 points over the international break. They were playing so well. They were left the relegation scrap in its rearview mirror for the first time in 2 years. They've, some safety, in-season safety was achieved, and that's all gone. We'll see where this all ends up, but it does feel funny that so you said it, motivational spot of the year. Don't need to get too deep into a team getting deducted 10 points. Right away, there's motivation built in. But the fact that they're also playing a Big Six side, I think kind of adds to it a little bit, considering that United was one of the 6 teams that tried to destroy the Premier League not that long ago and didn't face any point deductions from that. They also get a United team that has frankly just been in shambles all year too. So you're going to go into a bear pit on Sunday at Goodison Park. Not the team I'd want to go into said bear pit. Maybe the last team I'd want to go into said bear pit in the entire league. And before I hand it over to you two, I mean, I like Everton here. I'll talk about it now. I'll talk about it later. United is one of just, I believe, 4 teams in the Premier League right now. 5 teams, excuse me, that doesn't have a single player with at least 4 goals on its roster. And I think that is important to note, because when you have as many problems as United does defensively, what is the tonic for those issues? It's having a game winner, someone who you can just get the ball, let them create some magic and rescue you from trouble. And they're still finding a way to do it, by the way, more often than not, because through Scott McTominay of all people, more than anyone. But
start again.
Yeah, but it's and yeah, United's injury list. Everton, I alluded to.
I think they have the most injuries in the
league. I was just Everton may be the healthiest team in this going into the weekend. United is probably the one with the biggest crisis of roster decisions. So Everton's plus 180 right now at home. This number's kind of been bouncing around between not too much movement over the past couple of days, but I think Everton is going to end up taking money here, Anthony.
They should be the favorite.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Højlund probably out. Onana 50-50. Eriksen out. Casemiro out. Martinez out. So that's like the entire spine of the team, except of Bruno. And the wingers haven't been good all year. There's like real questions about like what is this team going to look like, because I thought you could squint like really hard and say, well, they played a really good opening half hour against Copenhagen before the red card. And then you could say, well, Luton Town at home, probably the second or third easiest fixture they'll have all year, was a really good performance because for the first time they truly consistently outcreated and dominated an opponent. But now they lose the striker who had really led those moments and finally gotten some shots and goals against Copenhagen and against Luton. They lose him. They lose the goalie who had been better with shot stopping in the last month after a pretty rocky start. Their main distributor out from the back is out. Johnny Evans is questionable now. Their defense went to shambles once he went out. They don't have any good build-up players. Not one in the whole team. McTominay in the midfield doesn't get on the ball a lot. He doesn't really pass. And Lindelof, Varane has been a shell of himself this year. This group, Luke Shaw may also probably still going to be out too. So the entire ball progression plan is kaput. And now you're playing an Everton team that has the capability to get in your face and turn you over high and create scoring chances off of that. So I get that, United has more talent at the club, and that's why they're the favorite on the road here. But the players on the pitch that have played this season, these teams have been about even. And given the injuries keep getting worse for United, Everton, you could argue, is the better team right now, and they're at home, and they're a dog. So yeah, toffees again, and you throw in the I'm not much of a motivation person, but
there are times.
This is one of those spots,
where
it's well, the league just screwed us. Now we're at home off the break. Let's go screw them back. Show them. So I did love the Sean Dyche memes that were coming out. It was Sean Dyche is the guy who told his landlord to raise his rent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he wants to embrace the struggle or the grind.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a more appropriate manager and bunch of players 100%. Too. Yeah, it was almost inevitable.
I haven't seen his comments on it yet, but I'm sure he'll be asked about it post or pre-match on Saturday, and I can't wait to see his raspy, raggedy voice. It's going to be awesome. But yes, Everton for sure, and the first of two United fades for me in the same week. If you follow me in the Action app, I bet Everton and Galatasaray 3 or 4 weeks ago because there were some really bad openers. It's time to cash those tickets because I believe we've gotten the world famous closing line value on them.
BJ, I'm going to hand it to you in a second too, but I kind of want to add here that it's really not a bad game. And I don't want to make a loser out of a winner here, but it's not a bad game to back an Everton route because there's absolutely a situation here where Everton just storms them. Mm-hmm. As Anthony said, there's the roster is threadbare for United. This is not Manchester United coming to Goodison. This is Manchester United B coming to Goodison Park.
Martial starting up top, probably,
Yeah,
right?
he has
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Who else? I mean,
So
and the other thing about it is you mentioned off the top, Michael, where they don't have this game winner that can go get it. Well, last year that was Rashford, who overperformed at a historic rate, and now he's not. And you're seeing the
In
problems
fact, he's
that
underperforming.
yeah, and now you're seeing the problems that Manchester United have, that they just don't have anybody to break it down. So I don't think it really matters what Everton decides to do, because Everton has shown that if they want to sit back and they don't want to press and they want to sit in a low block, that they are incredibly effective at doing that. So they could sit back and they could just say, you know what, you're not playing through us, United. And like Anthony mentioned, if United decides that, listen, we have no good build-up players, so let's just play route one football, let's send the ball deep, and let's play in transition, then you're playing a transition game with Everton, who is unbelievable in transition. So there's really no method here for United unless they pull off one of these magical wins again. Additionally, it looks like Aaron Wan-Bissaka also might be out for United, who's their best wide defender, which means that United will have to defend with Reguilon or probably Dalot as their two wide area guys. And how does Everton create all of their chances? Mainly, it's through crosses and getting ball out wide. So it's just a really good spot here to back Everton. They, again, like Anthony said, the players that are currently on the pitch, Everton is a better team than Manchester United, and they're at home. So crazy line, Everton, draw no bet, plus 115.
kind of feels like a letdown to wrap up with this next game on Monday night. I should mention that the Spurs match and Everton match are on Sunday. This one, Fulham and Wolves at Craven Cottage, Monday Night Football, with Fulham at plus 137, Wolverhampton plus 200, and the draw is plus 230. And as you heard from the wandering Wolf around here, this one looks like it's 3 for 3 on Gary O'Neill's rambunctious Wolves, making their way to the middle of the table here. Good for them. Yeah, I mean this looks like a great spot to back Wolves, BJ.
Yeah, I mean Gary O'Neill is just turning Wolves into that best version of the Bournemouth team that we saw last season, a team that is good in transition, good on set pieces, and can play well defensively in a low block. And quite honestly, I know Fulham's at home, but I don't think there is a scenario where they should be a home favorite without Paulinho in the middle of the pitch. Given what they have done offensively this season, which is next to nothing, they're going to have to start Raul Jimenez up top again, who did score when they were down 3 against Aston Villa. So congrats to Raul Jimenez.
Is that his
It's a
first
revenge spot here too.
Yep,
Watch out for that Raul.
That's true. That is true, Michael.
The revenge game.
But it's just so clear right now for Fulham that when they are playing, because they typically do concede a lot of possession, so when they're playing teams that will possess the ball more, they're playing a very, very narrow defensive shape to limit central progression. And they've done a pretty good job of it, honestly. But when they win the ball, they used to be able to get the ball out wide and send it into Mitrovic. Well, they just don't have anybody in the middle of the pitch to be able to do that. And they are not good at playing the ball centrally through the middle. And they also keep trying to play out of the back. And it has not been successful whatsoever. So Wolves can turn them over high. They can cause a lot of problems if Fulham decides they want to try to build out of the back. And without Paulinho, you're losing your best ball stopper in the middle of the pitch, and you literally have nobody else who can stop Wolves if they want to get forward in transition opportunities. Paulinho has 63 tackles plus interceptions this season. The next closest midfielder on Fulham doesn't even have 15. Like, that's how much of a difference it is when he is not on the pitch. So, and Wolves, looks like a slight chance that Pedro Neto might be back for this match, which would obviously be massive. But even if he doesn't play, Hee-Chan Hwang has been really, really good this season. 0.54 XG plus expected assists per 90-minute rate. Very good attacker. And quite honestly, what we worried about with Wolves coming into the middle of the season was their midfield, because they lost Neves, they lost Nunez, they lost Moutinho. And this midfield of Gomez and Lamina has been better in terms of a ball stopping perspective. They're getting more tackles and interceptions per 90 than Neves and whatever combination they were using last season. So I really don't think Fulham should be a home favorite here. I really am believing in Gary O'Neill and this Wolves team, who is, again, turning into the best version of that Bournemouth team that we saw over the second half of the season. So I think Gary O'Neill's team right now is a really good buy-on team, and this is a really good spot for them here on Monday night on the road. So I like them drawing a bet at plus 120.
Wolves have gone over 4 straight games.
Yep.
Have I bet any of them? No. In fact, I had the under once. But yeah, I mean, this Wolves attack is quietly cooking. I mean, even without Neto last week, 2.1 XG against Spurs. I thought they were good against Sheffield, not great. But yeah, this Fulham defense still is mediocre, and their attack is useless. They get Muniz. He shows some life, not much, and then he gets hurt. So we're back to 1 shot per game, Raul. And I just really don't see any advantages whatsoever for Fulham that make them a favorite. So yeah, I agree. I'm on Wolves as well.
Yeah, 3 for 3 on Wolves. Not too much to add there. All right, we'll go into the rest of Europe real quick. But before I do that, it's time to pay some bills. And what better time to do that than right around the holidays? That's right, the holiday season. It's right around the corner, and it's about to get pretty busy. But don't let that stop you from sticking to your habits and being the best version of yourself. And that's where our friends at Caldera Lab come in. 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute at night can be all the difference you need for a clearer skin. These guys are the best in the skincare game, and with an easy routine, can keep your face looking fresh no matter your schedule and no matter your betting habits. It's just 3 steps. The first one is the clean slate, which is a face wash to start and end your day. The second one is the base layer, which is a daily moisturizer used to hydrate your skin. And the third is the good, which is an eye serum you can put on at night to help your skin look tighter and smoother. Plus, what's a better gift than clear skin? How about a deal? And just for our listeners, we have an exclusive one. Use the code GOAL, GOAL, at calderalab.com for 20% off right now. That's 20% off with the code GOAL at calderalab.com. Make unforgettable first impressions with Caldera Lab. Okay, BJ, on to the Bundesliga. I can't let Anthony go first here because he's about to take us on an adventure. So what's your...
I'll just be quick. I'm going to go with the relegation 6-pointer. I like Bochum plus a half and minus 150 against Heidenheim. Heidenheim is one of the worst defensive teams that I've seen in recent memory come up to any of these Big 5 leagues. There's only been 2 matches this season where they've held an opponent under 2 expected goals, lying around 2.5 per 90. And Bochum is quietly improving. Over their last 3 matches, they've held Darmstadt, Cologne, and one other. Let me say it again. I forgot the last team. 1 second, just 2 seconds. I believe it was. All right, 3, 2, 1. And this Bochum team is quietly improving. Over their last 3 matches, they've held Mainz, Darmstadt, and Cologne all under 1 expected goal. And quite frankly, Heidenheim hasn't won the expected goals battle in any of their matches this season, so I don't see a scenario why they should be a home plus 120 favorite. So I like Bochum plus a half at minus 150.
All right, Anthony, floor is yours.
Yeah, I got a couple bets. Wolfsburg plus a half at home against Leipzig. I think, I gave Leipzig the benefit of the doubt early in the season because their numbers, they were running ridiculously hot. They've been the most fortunate team from a finishing perspective in all of Europe, but they're just really not that good. And that's kind of borne out in the numbers in their Champions League, where they were largely uncompetitive with City, in some of their league matches where they got outplayed by Mainz, they got outplayed by Darmstadt, were pretty even with Freiburg until the penalty late. Weren't great against Bayern except for the part where they scored the first 2 shots, so it kind of throws everything off. We're seeing now, though, that when Leipzig's been in even game states, they have not been very good. And so I think we have to downgrade them, and I think the market's still a little too high. If you bet against Leipzig this year, you'd be down money, but you'd be up in terms of CLV, and that's something that Wasa Galasso pointed out. The market has hated this team, and I'm starting to come around on that as well. So I'll take Wolfsburg plus a half at home. And then the game of the weekend in Europe, Gladbach and Dortmund. BJ, might have been right about Gladbach because we said in the lead up to the season that like they lost all of their attacking production. It was worth a shot on them at 33-1 to go down because of that. Well, they have found some really nice pieces from across, the leagues. They're getting some unsustainable numbers from some of these guys, but Kavankara, the Czech forward they bought, has been really impressive from a shots perspective. They're getting really good production from Frank Honorat, who they bought from Ligue. He's been the best ball progressor pretty much in Europe and has put up some ridiculously good numbers as well. So they found some pieces to make this work. Honorat has 4 assists already. They are now facing a Dortmund defense, which is flat out terrible, and the market is not reacting enough. So I like Gladbach plus 1.25, and I like them first half team total over plus 125. You can just look at it. Every time Dortmund plays a team of any quality, they have been getting diced up. Still are some concerns for Gladbach defensively with their injuries and just not being very good, but they are going to be in this game because of how bad Dortmund is defensively. So give me the Foles. Go get those goals. Hopefully in the first half.
And we're gonna need them in both halves because a little foreshadowing. Not the end of our discussion about Gladbach. BJ, you're the only one with anything in Serie A this weekend.
Yeah, the big match of the weekend, Juventus-Inter. Inter's a road favorite, and I am not sure that I agree with that. Obviously, Inter is just pumping everybody right now. They're just destroying everybody in their path. They've beaten Roma and Atalanta and have been cooking in the Champions League as well. But this Juventus defense has been incredible. I mean, they're allowing like 0.7 XG per 90. Like they'll let you into the final third, they'll let you get shots off, but it's nothing of value. Like their last notable match in Serie A when they played Fiorentina, they scored early and they just handed the ball to them and just dared them to try and score. And they couldn't. They took a lot of shots. None of them were of value. And that is the peak of Allegri ball. And Juventus is at that right now. So I really don't think there's a scenario where Inter should be a road favorite here. I mean, if we were doing this against this Juventus team of last season, sure, I would say, yeah, that makes sense. But given the way Juventus has been playing and the defensive numbers that they have put up, I like them plus a half, minus 140 at home.
Okay, La Liga time. Anthony.
Well, my 2 teams are playing each other.
I know this is tough for you, huh?
It is tough. So I'm going to take both teams to score because I think both attacks are undervalued by the market. Yes, minus 110. I bet it this morning. Valencia against Celta Vigo. I'll tell you, I was in the office, in our Action Network office on Friday when they played Bilbao. What a match. I mean, I was covered in sweat by the end, and I thought we were going to cash our +1, and then in the final kick of the freaking game, Vigo concedes a soft-ass penalty. I mean, it was a penalty because it hit his hand, but like so weak, did not make any impact on the real play. They give away the pen. They lose 4-3, like 10 minutes after they missed their own pen to take the lead. It was classic, and BJ sent me the article. There's an article in The Analyst about Rafa and this Celta team and just like historic levels of bad luck. But look, Valencia, Doro and this attack have actually been really improved. They just put almost 3 XG on Real Madrid a couple weeks ago. Granted, everybody does that. But this Vigo team is pretty passive defensively, but they're still conceding a good number of chances. It's just the attack that has consistently been underrated, and the process has been good. I still believe in them. I will believe in them for the rest of the season. Valencia, Vigo, BTTS, yes, minus 110.
All right, BJ, what do you have?
Thriller incoming. I might play an alt over too.
I'm sure everybody's aware right now, but Girona's at the top of the table in La Liga. And I have been waiting very patiently for a spot to fade them. And I think I have found it here on Monday against the team that Anthony just mentioned, Athletic Bilbao, coming off that 4-3 win against Celta Vigo. So why Girona is at the top of the table is a very interesting conundrum. And really what it is
it's a real underdog story.
They've just been beating everybody that's bad.
They've played nobody.
They've been beating nobodies. They've won 11 matches. 10 of their 11 matches have come against essentially the bottom 10 teams in Spain. Their only one match they've won against a team in the top 9 is against my boys from Las Palmas. But that's it. They've played Real Madrid. They've lost 3-0. They played Sociedad to open the season, drew them 1-1. So we haven't seen them against good competition. And listen, they are really good in possession. Like, they are a very fun attacking team. They have really good players. Savio has been incredible for them, but he's injured now. And he's their best creator out on the wing. And what they love to do is they love to build out in a 3-1-6. They love to overload the last line of defense. And that's wonderful. And that works against bad defensive teams or teams at the bottom half of the table. But when they lose the ball, they are incredibly exposed to teams that can counter them quickly in transition. Who's the best team at doing that in La Liga? It's Bilbao. So this is a fantastic matchup for Bilbao, who's very quietly in 5th place and has a +9 expected goal differential as well. So Bilbao, pick 'em, +120 against a Girona team that's going to be without their best attacking player and, quite frankly, is overdue to lose a match against, they're finally have to play somebody good. So Bilbao, pick 'em, +120.
I've never seen a first half team total over that I love more than Bilbao in this game. It's so great. It is great. But, yeah. I mean, Girona's played nobody except for Vigo, who they barely beat. That's their only good, quote-unquote, win of the season. And they won it in stoppage time. So.
Yeah, the real underdog story of the season, owned by City Football Group. Why didn't you know?
Michael, can I say something I forgot to mention on the
We're heading toward them winning all 5 of the top leagues. They're
they're
going to buy Toulouse. They're going to buy Genoa.
I'm hoping, Michael, that Everton is a sacrifice so we can finally get a points deduction on City. I'm hoping. If that's the case, I think you'll be happy.
I think they'd sooner pull out of the Premier League. Okay, before we get to our underdog parlay, BJ, get us started in France.
Yeah, real quick. Nice -1, -115 against Toulouse. Toulouse, one of the worst defensive teams in France. As you've seen, they've given up 7 goals to Liverpool in the Europa League, conceding about 1.9 XG per 90 minutes. A really, really bad team when they have to sit in a set defense, and they're also really bad in transition. While Nice, when they play lesser competition, they have beaten that lesser competition by 1 expected goal at least in every single one of those matches. So a Nice team that is really fun tactical team that I talked about last time when they played Montpellier, who unfortunately did not win that match. But this is a good spot for a Nice team that is still undervalued by the market. So Nice -1 at home against Toulouse.
I really thought we were going to get a good number to bet PSG against Monaco at home, but we didn't. So I'm going to be passing there. I do like Strasbourg at home against Marseille. Marseille has been interesting this year. Their underlying numbers are actually better than the past, but their goal difference is negative. And that is really funny because all of those years of this Marseille team being an absolute luck box, they're finally starting to regress, and the market just keeps downgrading them. And I think it's real, and I think it's a very mediocre team when you look at them on paper. Their biggest problem has been they haven't really created against any quality opponent they've played this year. They played Lille less than 1 XG, Nice less than 1 XG, Lens less than 1 XG, Monaco 1 XG. So anytime they've played any real competition, PSG as well, the attack has really fallen off. And that's what we've kind of suggested with this team for a while, which is just like they're not nearly as good. They just have an insanely high conversion rate of chances. And now, Strasbourg's on a great defense. They're an average defense, but catching a half goal at home, I like Strasbourg at home. So,
all right. We are just about a week removed from our 1-year anniversary of hitting our only underdog parlay. It was 201 to 1. Came through. The 1-year anniversary came through when we were on international break, November 12th, I think it was. So maybe we can get back on the board here with an 87-1 banger. BJ, you can kick us off.
Wolves +210 on the road against Fulham on Monday night. It'll be the last leg of this one. Just a really good, I already talked about it, really good matchup here for Wolves against a Fulham team that's going to be without Paulinho, their best ball stopper in the middle of the pitch. Fulham offensively has done next to nothing. They're still going to have to start Raul Jimenez up top. And Wolves, under Gary O'Neill, is becoming the best version of what Gary O'Neill's Bournemouth team was last season, a team that's good in transition, good on set pieces, and can cause problems if you try to build out through the middle of the pitch. The midfield's improved, so I really don't think there's a scenario with when Fulham doesn't have their best player why they should be a home favorite here. So I like Wolves plus 210.
Brentford.
Ugh. I hope this loses.
It's just it's do I have to keep going? Like, it's not that hard.
No.
They're always
I'll
in
save
it.
you the time. 2 out of 3 of the teams we have this weekend were in that parlay.
Yeah.
Brentford was one of them. It was Nottingham Forest and
Borussia
Mönchengladbach.
Should I change to Nottingham Forest? After I just made the whole song and dance about Brighton.
It was Gladbach 5-1 against
Dortmund.
Borussia Dortmund. How about that? So that's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, look, Dortmund's 5-1 on the road. Gladbach's 5-1 on the road at Dortmund, and this defense is just so flawed. They gave up 3 XG to Stuttgart. Every competent team they played has run up the score on them from a chances and goals perspective, and I think that's going to continue. So Gladbach is going to be in like a 2-2, 2-1 crazy kind of game. Could go either way. So at 5-1, I like the Foles.
Yep. So that's Brentford, Wolves, and Gladbach 87-1. If all 3 legs come through. On to best bets now for the upcoming Premier League weekend, Anthony.
Arsenal Brentford under 2.5 -104. Arsenal has been on an elite defensive run, the best defense in all of Europe, save maybe Nice, and they have prioritized control over everything. They have limited their own attack as a result of this. They have not been as good through the middle, and Brentford, with their defensive approach, I think still has the ability to shut down even the best attacks as they've done at times this season. I know they've had some slippage recently, but I like the under 2.5 here. I only projected for 2.36, so give me the under.
The wrong team is favored in Everton versus Manchester United at Goodison Park. Everton plus 180 is my favorite bet, hosting a beleaguered Manchester United squad. We talked about the motivational factor at play here for the Toffees, but that maybe undersells just how good this team's been relative to their expectations and to, I think, the public perception of them coming off of 2 dismal seasons and a really unlucky but poor start. So this is not your older cousins Everton hosting your older cousins Manchester United. This is a United team that's in a serious injury crisis. The name brand value is definitely overshadowing where this team truly is in terms of actual talent at the moment. So I love the Toffees here. I don't hate chasing some alternate spreads here. Toffees in or out. BJ, what do you got?
Aston Villa, draw no bet, plus 115 against Tottenham. The injury situation for Tottenham is very dire. As of right now, James Maddison, Mickey Van de Ven, Christian Romero, Basuma, and Richarlison are all out. Udogie is questionable. And that is a problem given the way that Ange Postecoglou wants to play. He wants his teams to press high, and he's going to play a very high line. If Aston Villa, which they should be able to, which they are a good build-up team, to play through that first line of the pressure, that is going to put a lot of pressure on Eric Dyer and Ben Davies to defend in one-on-one situations against Ollie Watkins and Moussa Diaby, who have been in incredible form right now. And Aston Villa, defensively this season, have basically had just 2 bad performances against Liverpool and against Newcastle, where they got beat up when they were trying to build out of the back, and it led to a lot of transition opportunities for both Newcastle and Liverpool. In their other 10 matches, they've only averaged or conceded about 1 expected goal per 90 minutes. So the defense is still very, very good. So given the injury situation right now for Tottenham, the players on the field, I think Aston Villa is a better team. So I like Aston Villa, draw no bet at plus 115.
Okay, that does it for this episode of Wondergoal. For BJ and Anthony, I'm Michael Leboff. We will see you again on Monday morning.